we have a clue to an area we've barely spent any time in that I think could have much more importance if one word is as important as I think it is.
So then it becomes who? Who helped Walker?
This is maybe the beginning of the new resistance.
Just jumped right into the big reveal, casually.
Well, I mean, everybody saw it, right? Today, guest host Dawn and I are talking about the thrilling post-apocalyptic science fiction TV show Silo Season 3, Episode 4, Whatever You Do, Don't Go Home. So spoilers are ahead.
We'll be talking about Camille's priorities in the silo,
Parallels in the timelines,
Robert, Bernard's return, and more.
Quick shout out to our channel members. Thank you so much for your support so we can keep making videos just like this one.
With that, let's get into the episode.
What did you think of the episode?
Well, before we get into this episode, I think I do have to fall on the sword and say that I don't think my theory last video was correct.
Okay, which theory was that?
I thought that maybe Camille was going to try and help Juliette by lying to the AI and somehow making it work. After watching this episode, I really don't feel like Camille is on Juliette's side. Now, I do think that it is possible that Camille does still learn to deceive the AI. I do think that is a real possibility for her. Is she going to do it for Juliette's sake? That part of my theory may not have executed as well as I'd hoped.
But I do see that there is interesting tension with her and the algorithm. There is interesting tension between her and Sims. And so, you know, people are always doing like so many different levels of moves. There's what they are telling the general public, then there's like what they're telling the people that's closest to them, and then there's like what they keep to themselves. And so it can be very hard to tell people's intentions in this show. And Camille just got this position. Like, all of this has happened pretty quickly. I mean, like maybe it has been like a few weeks since Juliette came back, but it is still relatively recent that Camille has gotten this, and she's got to still be struggling with it. She's got to still be like dealing with all this new information that she's learning, these things that she's been told. I mean, we've kind of seen it to a little bit. Like last episode, we saw when the algorithm said, you know, that the best thing to do would be to assist Juliette's already basically dead. Like, just take it the rest of the way. And you could see that wasn't what Camille was thinking right off the bat, you know? So yes, it does seem like she's going along with that, but she wasn't like instantly comfortable with it. It wasn't like the first thing that came to mind. So I do think that she is still figuring this out. Like, if you compare this to when Bernard had the IT position, Bernard was in it, you know. It was like whatever, like up until he found out about the safeguard, he was committed. And it's like, whatever we have to do, you know, even if there are small number of deaths along the way, it's like the greater good outweighs the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And he was in it. And I do feel like I see this with Camille, where she's like hesitant, even if it's just for a second, which to me says it's like it's not internalized yet. And there's still like a struggle of, is this the right thing to do or not?
I do agree with all that. Camille is still new to this position. She's taking in a lot of new information that she didn't expect. And she's a mother. And I think that is a big driving force behind some of her decisions, is that she doesn't actually care. Not that she doesn't care, but she would rather her son survive and live on than remember her and Robert. Like, it is more important that he survives to her. And so she will do whatever she needs to do to ensure that her son survives.
Yeah, and that's so tough. The way that, like, each individual is struggling with those decisions. I think this season, I really like the framing that they're doing with running the two timelines at the same time. You know, our timeline along with like the present timeline, because I do think it allows you to see kind of parallels. And you're seeing a similar thing with Daniel and his sister. He's now hit with this decision of the thing that he could do that is the best thing for her, not necessarily for, the episode before he'd said something about like, I need to do this for the people I work for. But like, he's now thinking about doing a decision that he thinks might be a wrong decision morally, but it's like the best decision for her, and it's interesting seeing these kind of like timelines side by side so that we can see some of those parallels.
I think this is something that comes up all the time where it's until people have a personal connection to a situation, it's very easy to judge and give advice. And then once you're in that situation, you're looking for like, well, but what about this? But what about this? Like, it makes it, when you're in it, options are on the table that wouldn't be on the table if you weren't personally involved.
Yeah. And the extent that some people are going to or willing to go to, I think that like all the calculations that are happening are really interesting. You've got Daniel calculating, is this worth my sister's life and her health? Camille is thinking about her family and the fact that she might make a decision that causes her son to forget her, but it would save him, and then there's other people that they see the calculations and it's like, what is his name? Was Robert Kennedy? The dude in the rebellion, one of the outsiders.
Yeah, Kennedy. He's seen the calculations, and to him, I think in the end, his life maybe isn't as important as the truth, and he knows that if he gets caught, that's it for him. But he is not going to. He's the type that I think part of it is also like, I think he disagrees with authority, and he thinks that authority oftentimes is doing the wrong thing. And so this is kind of like, I think that the individual rights in this case are like the laws are trampling on the rights of the individuals. The individuals are getting stepped on or getting pushed down. And so for him, sometimes I think like acting against the man, even if it's not like a morally right thing to do, it's like it's an act against this government, which is bad. And so for him, I think taking it down is positive, even if it hurts him in the end. Also, another interesting thing that I noticed with like seeing these two timelines at the same time, once again, with how it like brings out some of the parallels. Some of them I think make sense, like people being concerned for the safety of their loved ones and making decisions kind of based off of that. You can have that happen anywhere, anytime, so that's not surprising. We see two forms of conspiracy theories. We see, our timeline conspiracy theory with what is this? Is it Pete? What's his name? Steve the hacker.
Yeah, Steve. We see one with Steve the hacker and his hacking group have these groups of conspiracy theories. We see it once again with like Kennedy, down, in the silo. They believe that it's safe to go outside, and it's interesting how these things pop up, and that they pop up at different times in different places with different types of people. But I think the most interesting one to me is watching Daniel and Helen's storyline with them being surveilled And if you think about today with all of the like doorbell cameras and all the technology to be like the fact that our phones are constantly giving up our information, even when you're not using them, they're like pinging cell towers. And this is starting to sound conspiratorial. But the interesting thing is that honestly, Daniel and Helen on the outside in what is supposed to be like our world, basically, seem like they are just about as big brothered as the people in the silo are. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's cameras everywhere now, and your information is always there. But yeah, that's a good point.
so it's like you don't have to have walls around you to have a prison. And I think that to a certain extent, you can see that Helen and Daniel are kind of imprisoned because of their knowledge. They're being watched. They are being coerced. They are right now. The blackmailing is relatively friendly blackmailing. I'm not saying, threatening to take his sister's benefits away so that she won't be able to afford, the life-saving treatments that she has. I'm not saying that that's friendly, but they can take it to the next step, where there's the dudes with clubs and guns or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. This is friendly blackmailing. That is a nice way to put it.
Well, I guess the next step wouldn't be blackmailing, blackmailing is the friendlier step than concrete shoes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking back into the silo of the outsiders, what do you think that their mission is? Like, are they there for the truth? Have they already decided? It sounds like Kennedy, at least, he knows what he thinks the truth is. And he is trying to find evidence that will support what he knows.
That's the dangerous thing about conspiracies. Thank you for saying that, because I think this is the thing that bugs me the most about conspiracy theorists, is that they have this belief and then they do everything they can to prove the belief. And that is like the opposite of science. But the interesting thing is, I do honestly think that they come from the same source, and it's the same thing that drives Juliette. It's like curiosity. It's this thing where that just can't be shut down. A drive to like want to learn and know things and get deeper truths. And yeah, I think that the issue I have with conspiracy theorists is that no matter how many roadblocks they hit, Kennedy finally finds Lucas Kyle. And what's his reaction when he hears what Lucas Kyle says?
That he's lying, that he knows that he can live outside. He knows it's a paradise outside. There's no way, because he saw the video.
Yeah, his response is like, "Oh, I guess they got you too, right?" So, yeah, so that's the really frustrating thing with them, is like they're just looking to prove their preconceived notion. And there are enough conspiracy theorists and enough conspiracy theories that some of them are true, or there are grains of truth in plenty of the other ones, as far as like what their aim is, I honestly don't know, because I feel like the long of it has to be, we want to get out.
Right. Agreed.
It's if it's safe out there, then let me out. I think that's the end goal. I think that they know that they are going to be caught if they try to just break out, because I think they want to like break everybody. I don't think, if they individually wanted to go out, those four could just say, I want to go out.
Right.
I think that obvious. So the fact that they haven't done that, to me, means that they want to help the others, and or that they want to break the system so that everybody gets to make the choice for themselves. And or they want the unfortunate thing is, what they probably want is is a revolution, which kind of forces the choice on everybody. Like, I think they probably want to break the system, which is kind of ironic because to a certain extent, completely breaking the system so that nobody can choose to live in it is making the choice for other people, just like they feel like the people that run the silo are forcing the choice of being in the silo on them. So it's kind of the opposite side of the coin. Instead of, like, I don't think that they're thinking that they can just like get the information out and eventually there'll be a vote and you'll be able to say, okay, the truth is out. If you want to go outside, you want to go outside. If you want to live in this system, you can live in this system.
Yeah, I think they're definitely looking for that I told you so moment, like, we were right. They want that notoriety for them, that they went against the man and they were right. And they saved the people of the silo. They don't want it to just be, like you said, the four of them go out and that's the end.
Yeah. It's interesting. These stories are finally starting to come together, with Juliette having found Lucas, with Lucas having found Kennedy, Juliette and Shirley Shirley making her way to Juliette, Juliette finding Bernard at the end. I think several threads are finally coming together.
You just jumped right into the big reveal casually.
Well, I mean, everybody saw it, right?
I was just, thought we could make a bigger deal about it, and you just casually threw that in.
Yeah. I mean, so have to say, Mark was right.
Mark was right.
Mark was 100% right. He had that, and I had a similar feeling up until they showed the like saran wrap, and I am curious about that scene. Was that what actually happened? And like next episode, we'll get a little bit more context. Like there was an air tube in there, so he basically had like a snorkel. Or was that like what Mark thought that was a visualization of Common's description of what happened? I didn't understand who he would be saying that to. Like, maybe that's what he told his wife, but we didn't see him talking to his wife. And I feel like that scene would have happened earlier. So that didn't quite jive with me. So I took that scene as the truth.
Well, we did. That is the story. We saw that scene with the saran wrap, I think right before he told Camille how it was done, because they were trying to make sure their stories matched. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was pretty sure that scene was shown right before he said to Camille,
Okay.
No, I don't remember. I'm second guessing myself now.
Yeah, it was it was episode 1, and in my head they had Juliette had already been mayor. It was already week 1 or 2. Like, she'd recovered enough that she was mayor, and she had been mayor long enough that we had seen that the people were happy to see her, but she was struggling with this whole, like, I don't remember things. And she was already at the point of like starting to get nuggets of information back. So I want to say that this was like 2 weeks afterwards. And in my head, and I could be wrong, but I just took it as like Camille and Sims would have already gotten their story straight by now, right?
You would think that would be a priority, is making sure that like 2 of the top people in the silo, you would think that they would make sure that their stories matched before they start remaking Memories and Juliette and making sure that everyone is on the same page.
So that was what I thought it was.
Okay, so since you opened up the can, let's talk about the big reveal.
Talk about the big reveal.
About Bernard being alive. So we know that Bernard is in a bed, safely tucked away in the Digger Void, and that Walker is the one who sealed up the Digger Void. So I do think that Walker, obviously, knew about this, knew that Bernard was not alive, and chose not to tell Juliette when they met. But I don't think Walker could get Bernard there by herself. which means at least one other person knows that Bernard is alive. So then it becomes who? Who helped Walker, I assume it's Walker, move the body to the Deer Void? And I did think it was interesting. The nurse who was helping Juliette in this episode escape, when Camille was saying, like, how did this happen? You know, talking to Robert, it's like, you handpicked this nurse. It's like, okay, interesting. Like, is Robert in on this? Is somehow, you know, he handpicked the nurse who then helped Juliette escape. The nurse said, go to room 76, whatever room that was, 76. When Robert and Camille were talking, they said the nurse had family on a lower level, and so they were going to go check out her family's home. But that's not where Robert went. He went to the same place that the nurse told Juliette to go. And I don't think that nurse would risk her life to save Juliette to then serve her up on a platter to Robert Sims. So, I don't know. It's very tough. Like, we saw Robert have a soft moment for Juliette in the previous episode when talking about her dad, but that was after all of this would have gone down. That's after he would have allegedly killed Bernard. You know, we saw how upset he was about Juliette showing up near his son. So I don't know. It feels like Robert Sims has to be connected in some way, but at the same time, you know,
you can respect somebody's leadership and respect what the causes that they are doing, and at the same time think that they are an absolute piece of shit, an asshole, whatever it is. I'm not going to name names. I have worked with bosses that I have thought have run a very great business and have, done a great job of like hitting certain numbers and getting things to thrive while simultaneously being absolute assholes that I wouldn't want to necessarily spend any time with. And I think this might be one of those situations where he respects the truth that Juliette is fighting for, but he will never forgive her for what she did to his kid.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I was in a very similar situation as you, thinking about Sims.
Okay.
But I didn't put two and two together, which, like, as you were talking about it, I was thinking about the void is supposed to be sealed. And I think that I agree that, like, Walker probably set that door, because I think if Walker had sealed it, she would have sealed it properly, and it would have been very tough for Sims to get through, get through it and create a false door without people noticing, which to me means something else, which is that they're working together.
I mean, it kind of seems like they might have to be.
This is maybe the beginning of the new resistance, and it is forming with the old guard from the mids and from the bottom. You've got the secret head of judicial, because Sims was while Meadows was the actual judge, he was running it while she was being an alcoholic. And then he was working to get into IT. He had a ton of knowledge. He may not have had all of it, but he was as close as you could get to Bernard's position. And now you've got him, Bernard, and you've got Walker, who I think, while obviously Knox is the head of maintenance, I think that everybody respects Walker. And obviously she's not running day to day, because she doesn't have the time, she doesn't have the interest, she doesn't have the knowledge for some of that stuff. But I do think that if Walker said something that people would listen. So I think she does have a certain level of influence.
Knox is head of mechanical, not maintenance.
Thank you.
Important distinction.
Yes, yeah, you are with 1,000% correct. Roast me in the comments. Constantly making mistakes. At some point, I need to do like a compilation
Of all of your wrong theories.
No, all my flubs. I do some horrible flubs. Thank you. So I think this is like this is an interesting trifecta supergroup here of these three, and then Juliette just. So now you have the mayor. So now you have like that's the old guard on the like the entirety of the silo. It's going to be tough for Camille to. Now I know that like Camille has the algorithm, which is almost all seeing and all knowing, which is another tough thing to go against. But if there's a damn good group to go against her, this is it.
Yes, this is the group that could take her down for sure.
Yes. Okay, last interesting little nugget. The names of the books that this is based off of are Wool, Shift, and Dust. I think that up until, I don't remember if it was the end of season 1 or the end of season 2, but it wasn't until the end of one of those 2 seasons that we really got the reference to the name Wool and finding out how important it was, that there was the family that grows and or shears the sheep that they use to make the wool for cleaning. Like I didn't know that was wool for cleaning. And there was also an interesting story related to that of them kind of getting this like negative narrative being pushed against them, and so they had kind of like a stigma about them, but they obviously were doing important work. And so we finally had that moment where the word was referenced, and it's like that's the name of the movie, or the TV show in this case.
Book in this case.
Well, yes, but you know what I mean. Like when you finally get that reference, and it's like, oh, that's why it's named that. There was an interesting reference that made me wonder whether or not we have a clue to an area we've barely spent any time in that I think could have much more importance if one word is as important as I think it is.
Okay, keep going.
And honestly, I don't know if we even should have gotten this word this season yet, because we haven't read the books, but we did go to Comic-Con. This is my fun little Comic-Con outfit. And they did explain that, so like seasons 1 and 2 covers book 1. Season 3 covers book 2. Season 4 covers book 3. However, book 2, Shift, is basically just Daniel's story or the like our timeline story. It may cover a little bit more than that, but it doesn't have Juliette until I think Graham Yo said like the last page or something, last chapter, last page, something like that.
Very much at the end of the book.
Now his reasoning was interesting because it was definitely a financial decision. It wasn't, he didn't say like, oh, we think this is a much more interesting story to intercut these 2 simultaneously. He said like, when you've got this big star, like,
I didn't take it that way. He said, when you have Rebecca Ferguson, you don't leave her out. And I took that to mean like he was respecting and calling out to her like what a great actress she is, and when you've got her on the roster, you don't leave her out. You incorporate her because she's a great actress.
I mean, she's also the executive producer, so she might have, as part of the money, she might have been like, I'm not going to be in this.
That's also fair.
So she might have had a part in that. Not trying to throw any shade. And I'm absolutely loving this season. I think it's interesting to kind of interconnect these. But basically, I don't think we should have gotten much of the silo this season. But what we did, very interesting. So Orla Kent dies. Her body is found in the mines. Cause of death, they want to know, can you tell us if the cause of death is poison? And he's like, poison gas, you know? And he's like, no, her lungs are clean. So then they're like, well, maybe she went into the mines and something collapsed on her. And he's like, no, 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 no. You don't understand me. Her lungs were clean. I've dealt with a lot of people in the mines, and anybody that spent time in the mines has dust in their lungs. And that's the name of the third book. Just dust, not dust in the lungs. And so it does make me wonder if there is some greater significance to the mines and what they are doing there. If it's not just that they are mining for resources that are needed, but they can't mine too far. Otherwise, they'll find out that there are other silos and they'll kind of like cross-contaminate, and then they have to, do the safety protocol. I wonder if it's more than just resources.
Interesting. Okay. Well, guess I'll have to stay tuned to find out.